Today for the light review, joined by Paola from Atrium and of Italy, obviously. Hello, Paola.
Hello.
Glad to have you with us. So I just thought we'd start off and say you've worked for not just Flos, but a number of manufacturers, both here in Italy. I studied in Italy, but obviously that was a different experience. I mean, there was a lot of fun, but probably it was a nice experience of the culture. But how for you is it different, the way the customers react in Italy? Because I have my own opinion, and I think perhaps Italians are more educated, but how do customers interact with your brands, and how do you find it's different to here in the UK?
I mean, I think that to start, like, I worked for other manufacturers when I was in Italy, but not in sales. So it was a little bit of a different field. I was actually a designer. So I can tell you, what my opinion is from different sort of perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when I think about it, it's not just because I'm Italian, but there is a very famous architect, Luigi Cacciadominioni, who claimed once that quite simply we are the best. And this is because we have. I'm just, that's what he said, not what I'm saying.
No, it's
but
fine,
that's because we have more imagination, more culture, and are better mediators between the past and the future. And I think this is something that you can quite tell from the Italian design culture and portfolio of products. I consider Italy a very passionate nation as we are, as a population, I would say, and in some sort of way, I don't know, like a world-leading laboratory for sort of like new ideas, and there is something that I need to recognize about us as a population of designers, is the fact that we are quite capable in anticipating and adapting to the public moods. And you can sort of tell that eventually, from the products that come from our countries, but not just from Italian designers, even from international designers. I think somehow when a designer that is not an Italian one comes to Italy, it then leaves with some sort of like a design Italian passport, going back to his or her country.
My friend worked at Continuum, and Continuum in Milan?
Yeah.
And I had interviews with Izazoi, I pronounced that wrong, the European Institute of Design staff. So I was obviously on board with what you're saying. So it's interesting. Is it? I mean,
yeah, I mean, like when you think about the Italian design culture, like it's interesting because it is very much a mixture between craftsmanship, because we got a really long history in craftsmanship as part of actually the design culture, the culture of the country, but it's always combined with modern technology. And I think you can also tell that from the way Italian customers maybe look at some sort of product like lighting, which are sort of, they are like a technological products, in a very different way from what British customers do. I mean, since I moved to London and I moved into sales, I've been sort of surprised. I worked for Artemide for a very long time as a designer, but I also had, the chance to work a little bit in marketing and also, to approach customers directly. And in Italy, I think end consumers, they follow very much what the trend is in the Italian design culture. They're always on board. When I came in London, I was under the impression that the country, in a way, the customers are still a little bit behind that. They're still looking at technology with, not that, with a little bit of a concern almost, because they're like, well, we understand what that means. However, there is still some sort of like British tradition eventually. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it's interesting having another perspective, because I can put it like this. When I went to Italy, it was complete contradiction. So on the one hand, you have, and this was going back some time, you had And Italians were great at introducing new technologies like taps that had sensors that you just put your hand underneath. But on the other side, they wouldn't change at all. You could go to the toilets and there'd just be a hole in the floor. I know that's quite an extreme example, and you'd like, whoa. Or you say, how about you put some other herbs in that pasta? You're like, don't be stupid. I'm not going to change a recipe we've had for 200 years. So it was really weird. On one hand, they did embrace technology, but also I found that there wasn't, although they liked new things, they didn't like taking risks so much as it had to be cool, and they had to know it was cool before they would take a risk. It's not like they're in Camden, you have a lot of punks and things. You know, they wouldn't, I'm not saying that that's cool, but you know, it's just a different way of expressing yourself. But Italy, it's, especially Milan, is very like that, isn't it? You know, you are this.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, we're very precious about our design culture as well. I mean, I think that a lot, I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of our products in the design history are part of the design history, you know, kind of everlasting products, things that becomes collectible pieces. So in sort of a way, we are attached to that sense of tradition, I would say, very much. However, like something that, you know, I appreciate versus maybe the British design, where they, you know, in England, there are great designers, but I always feel there is a little bit more like an attention to almost like fashion in a way, whether in Italy, there is a bit more of, you know, attachment to traditions. Which could be materials, techniques, you know, sort of like kind of design icons, coming even from different, you know, fields, not necessarily like product design.
No, I think I'd agree with you. Do you think the average Italian customer is more discerning than the average Brit? Discerning means more picky, more likely to choose on the basis of research, and they're not just going to say, oh, that's nice, I'm going to have that. They'll look into it, they'll research, they'll see that, maybe go to.
I think the Italian customers, certainly, on my opinion, when they shop, they come more informed than British customers. That's the feeling I have. They do, as you said, some research, which is related to maybe, you know, the designer who designed the product. They look at different options coming from different brands. They try to understand a little bit more about the concept behind the product, but also about the technology. Whether in UK, even in the brief experience that I had, because I worked for a brief period for a big retailer here in London, which is the Coran shop. So when I was in one of their stores, that, you know, it's more when you get, you know, customers coming and they want a specific look, but not necessarily come informed about the product, the design, or anything that is behind that. And it's interesting because they appreciate very much when they find someone who is actually telling them sort of stories, you know, around the designs that they might buy or not. And it's interesting to see how sometimes they actually change their mind completely as soon as they understand what they are going for.
That's really interesting, and it's quite, I like that. I like the fact that people care, because one thing I noticed in Italy, that it was a classic style, and people they were more educated, I think. So, I mean, Italy is obviously renowned for its style. Do you think this is a driving factor, that you put a great importance, don't you, on looking right, whether it's in person or in the home?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we are fed with that since we are like children eventually, in every possible aspect of our life. I mean, it's obviously not everywhere in Italy, but I would say in the large majority. So I think it comes sort of natural, a little bit for us, maybe a little bit easier than here eventually.
Yeah, I think because I must admit, when I lived there, I knew what I had to learn what I couldn't do, because in England you can go out in shorts in the city. It doesn't matter. But I was
Absolutely.
on the Milan tube and I was in shorts, and people were looking at me like I was some sort of, I'd arrived from outer space, and I
That's
thought,
true.
oh, this is weird. But then that's the whole, for me, is the whole culture is about, there's like an underwritten rule of loads of things you don't do. No one tells you, you have to find them out. And design is one of those things. Everyone, a lot of people are quite educated about design. I like that, but there were certain things that you just didn't even think about doing because you just wouldn't do it in Italy. Whereas in England, it would be completely fine to walk down your street and I mean, you see people in pajamas in Tesco's, right?
I know, I know, I know.
Would you see that in Italy ever? No.
No, I mean, this is something I like about UK, to be honest, is the fact that you can, I mean, London is a really, really huge city, and you can disappear in that completely. As you said, you can go around, you know, dressed in any possible way, and literally no one cares. Like for everyone is normal. Whether in Italy, that's not quite the same. As you said, there are some sort of like unwritten rules eventually. I think it's because sometimes we maybe consider ourselves in Italy, I'm not specifically talking about myself, but like, you know, about friends and people I know from the lighting field, but not just that, you know, a lot of my friends are designers, is the fact that you know, it's like that doesn't look good, and it's universal. It's not your opinion anymore. It's just because it comes from us. It's like, well, that's not okay.
That's really cool, because I think it's
the same thing when you said about the food, you know, like the pasta. It's like putting chicken in the pasta. For us, like a thing that, oh my God. But there is nothing strange about that if you actually start to think about it. I don't know.
Con lo cacciatore, no?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, you put like a meat in the pasta. We do that, but we don't put chicken, which is weird because it's like, well, you know, it's just a type of meat.
Yeah, I do get that. So to wrap it up, the final question, I suppose, is how do you think the fact you're an Italian, and I mean, what is the biggest difference you see between the way we approach lighting design and the way Italians do? Because we have so many of your brands here, and I'm always for pushing these brands because they're lovely products. What is the biggest difference between the two?
I would say, I mean, I don't think there is like a super huge difference. The main one, and I'm talking about, you know, the brand I represent now in UK, but also the one for which I was working when I was in Italy, is that, you know, we are so proud of the heritage of our brands, of our designers, of the history, of whatever is behind, you know, of the classics we have. Whether when I look at maybe the British design, I'm just talking about lighting, not furniture, or like in a wider sense. You know, there are some brands which are very, I don't feel, I mean, I feel that they kind of stopped innovating. They are very much strict with their like tradition. And then there are some other brands which are innovating, but more in a fashionable way, I would say. I mean, I don't want to sound like, because I might say something which sounds not that positive, but I feel sometimes that there is a slightly lack of deepness on the way some of the products of some of the British lighting brands I know, they kind of work. In fact, for instance, when it comes to us, or to Flos, it's interesting to say that the biggest, you know, competitors for us in UK are very small brands, like niche brands, mainly coming from, you know, Denmark, or, you know, those countries. And it's because I think the British culture, like somehow British people, they like minimalism and, you know, pure lines, usage of natural materials when it's possible, like, you know, stones, wood, etc.
Thanks, Paola. That was very thought-provoking and interesting. Let's see how many feathers are ruffled. The more the merrier. For this series, from the Light Review, we'll be taking a look across the channel and beyond to see how some of our friends on the continent have influenced the design that we all know and love. So be sure to like and share this podcast and stay tuned for the next installment. Thanks.